Espinosa are not coming, so
So
Peterson's
Peterson's-
the one that we were,
He's the
oh, wait.
table tipper, huh?
Yeah, he's a four, so if he doesn't show up, we can't have the meeting.
Yeah.
We are live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna wait a bit to see if we get one more council member before we start the meeting.
In order to start the meeting.
Yeah, because right now we don't have a quorum, so we're gonna wait just maybe 5 minutes to see if Councilmember Peterson shows up.
Are you texting him now?
I'm trying to, yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't check his text too often.
well, or the other option is Melody did say if we were in a
Oh,
struggle that she could, that's just,
you would call him.
yeah.
Yeah, that we're doing a special meeting later this week or next.
Mhm. We have quite a few things on the agenda.
Yeah. Not too bad. Doesn't say anything that was amazingly pressing.
I mean, one that was pressing was the federal S4 grant that's due this week,
Oh,
yeah.
We have
Oh,
a
definitely wanna
special
apply to that.
Zoom style meeting just to address that one issue.
I mean, we could,
We could.
This is Ree. What we could do is not end the meeting, just continue it to a date, time certain this week, if we know when we can be available. And that would take care of the advertising.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, so the meeting continues to be open until the next,
Like in recess.
okay.
okay, so we won't motion to conclude, we'll motion
Correct.
to adjourn. And heck, we could do something where we just get 4 council members together for 10 minutes.
yeah.
Can we pick?
Which council members?
Kidding.
Well, I mean, it's the majority, so. Just a quorum, and we need to announce the time
Yeah.
and place for the open public. Records or not records, but just. public meeting.
Paul, do you know why the football game is now early this week?
Natchez Valley is so far away that oftentimes they request to go earlier simply because of that.
Like Cashmere.
The
Oh,
new
gotcha,
back home.
yeah,
Okay. Oh, so they can be done and not home
Yeah,
in the middle of.
yeah, yeah.
That
I'm
makes
sorry,
sense.
typically it's Natchez Valley because that's like, besides
Also
Highland, is
far away.
usually like farthest we go. So, yeah, usually Cashmere.
Cashmere's a bit of a jaunt.
You know, there's a mayor pro tem, right, Lauren? Or if the mayor's out, do council members have pro tem? Cause
No.
I heard-
No, the mayor.
No, there is an alternate. for-
No, they can call a friend.
They have to be designated.
Dude, like Lance. From a friend, we're trying to decide if we vote.
Right, exactly. What do you say? Wait. Let me get this open. Let me check my emails to see if I have an email.
Man, it's been a long time since we've had a meeting where we didn't have a quorum.
Oh, I know, I think the last time was like right a couple months after I first started, so it's been about 5 years.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a Larry Dickerson was kind of
Yeah.
a little intermittent. And then some people would call in and then we would get Larry, so we stuck with 3 or something. So,
Yeah, because I've never had it happen while I've been here at all.
yeah. I vaguely remember it happened a few times. Like in that first year or two after I first started back in 2016. Again, it was pretty rare.
Yeah.
That happened twice a year.
So I have to ask, have you at least seen the 3-gallon cans of the triple popcorn?
Oh, yeah.
I want to make sure.
I was
Still on his
on
mind.
the cheddar.
No, those are okay. Yeah, It's not my favorite. I do like the caramel.
The caramel is best.
Yeah.
And the regular's not too bad. I'm just not a fan of the cheese stuff.
Oh, that's my favorite.
All yours, right?
I like it, it's the white cheddar, I don't like the other cheese.
I like it.
Hey, we're taking care of some serious stuff here.
I am a fan of Reese's, though, which is pretty good. I had to go to, candy that I was gonna just go by and eat, it'd probably be Reese's, that's a combination of chocolate, peanut butter is pretty nice. I mean, it's cheap candy, but I mean, it's,
Or the almond Snickers.
I'm not sure I've tried that.
I didn't know that existed.
Oh my goodness. Somehow it's not as sweet. I don't know why. But it's just hard stuff.
I also don't mind Skittles in small doses. But I've got like a Skittle horror story when I was a freshman in college. My mom, I think one of her love languages is giving gifts. And she went shopping and she'll always buy me something. She bought me 2.5 pound bags of Skittles.
Costco size, huh?
And I got through about a third of one after eating like, handful after handful of Skittles. After 3 days, I just couldn't stand it anymore. One of my friends walked in my dorm room and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Skittles, I love Skittles." I'm like, "Would you like 4 pounds of Skittles?" He's like, "Yes." And so I gave him, the unfinished bag and then the completely sealed bag. And like, I saw him a week later. I'm like, "How are those Skittles?" I never want to see another Skittle in my life.
There's something sending boxes of food to your.
Well, my mom lives locally here,
Tyler,
so.
I don't think it's there yet. Yesterday I went, sent him a box of all of the spicy flavored ramen bowls.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
he'll be
yeah.
opening a box of all the different spicy. ramens.
No doubt.
My mom did that too. She also ruined, the chicken flavored ramen for me because she got me like, the 108, pack of ramen boxes.
That's
It's all
She was all
just
about
the-
it. She's, yeah.
And she'd be like, "Oh, these are cheap and there's like 400 of them, so I'll just send them back."
Yeah, I can't eat the chicken. I can't eat the chicken because when Aaron and I were first married, we were really poor.
Oh, yeah.
And it was that ramen and beans is what we ate day in and day out, day in and day out. And now since we evolved out of poverty, I have not eaten chicken ramen. I like the spicy one, but I won't eat the chicken, just like, I think it's a psychological thing. that,
It is.
I can't eat it anymore. but
It's,
It took me years of it's probably in just the last 5 years that I will eat apples, because growing up, I was raised by, my grandparents were orchardists and you had apples for everything. Apples all year round in every way, shape and form.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna need a quorum. We have
Let's
that.
at least wait.
Well,
15 minutes.
1 minute, because I'm trying to see if I can get TJ remotely, because I got a text that he just got back.
Where was he?
TJ.
He was out of town.
Did they ever settle or what's going on? That there's a Skittle lawsuit. Because they said that they brought a lawsuit because there's things within Skittles that are unfit for human consumption.
Oh, great, after
I
I
believe
found it
that.
as a freshman.
I only like the sour Skittles.
I don't think I taste anything 2 days after I eat those. And I'll eat those and then 2 days later.
What's interesting about Skittles though is, well, my wife and I bought a freeze dryer because a couple years ago, she's like, "I have a freeze dryer." I'm like, "Okay." But if you heat them up just a little bit in the oven on a tray, and then you put them in the freeze dryer, it sucks all the air out to create a vacuum and then begins to freeze it, but they pop up like popcorn. So you have like little popcorn Skittles that you pop in your mouth.
I would say for Jolly.
Yeah,
I
I
was
guess
gonna
so.
say,
Yeah.
are they still, so they're not sticky? Are
They're
they
just
still?
freeze dried.
Oh.
So,
Huh.
I mean, they're still sticky. They'll melt in your mouth like popcorn.
Right,
It's just sugar that's essentially pumped up. Some of them don't pump up real well, so.
Yes,
Who is
All
it?
right, we have
TJ.
a quorum.
Okay,
Thank you, TJ.
You saved us from talking about candy.
well, I was just gonna talk about my gummy bear addiction, but I guess we're out of town. I mean, out of time. Okay. It is 7:10 PM on Tuesday, September 13th, and I now call to order the 2103rd regular meeting of the City of College Place. Sherry, will you please take roll call?
Mayor Hernandez,
Present?
Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinoza,
Present.
Councilmember Ball,
present.
and Councilmember Williams, and Councilmember Sherman has to be excused.
And we're missing Councilmember Peterson. Okay. But we do have a quorum.
We do have.
All right, thank you. Will you all please join me on the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's now time for public comment. Lisa, sorry, Sharon. Did anyone submit a comment in advance?
No, I did not receive any written comments. We do have one person in the attendees list. If you'd like to make a public comment.
Okay,
please raise your hand.
if anyone attending virtually would like to speak, please raise your hand now. Okay, then we'll move on. Next is a consent agenda consisting of the agenda for tonight, September 13th, 2022. The council minutes from August 23rd, 2022. The joint council workshop minutes from August 22nd, 2022. The council workshop minutes from September 6th, 2022. The city hall renovations, Meyer Architecture Phase 2 compensation expenditure. The annual update to the payroll allocation policy and procedures. The commission appointment confirmation to Youth Advisory Commission for the 2022-2023 academic term. A salary ordinance update number 6. The Public Works Inspector job description. A resolution to update the authorized signers at Community Bank. And excusing the absence of council members Sherman and Williams. Are there any items any member of the council would like to have removed from the consent agenda at this time? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
One second.
Thank you. Your first and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion's passed.
I didn't hear.
Councilman for Espinosa, did you aye or nay?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's several action items on the agenda tonight. So the first action item is an ordinance regarding the regulation of abandoned property and abandoned construction site. Ms. Colwell will be present on that.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the third pass for this code that we are asking council to consider and to pass. Hopefully this won't occur anytime in our future, but if we see a huge economic downturn, we may see property in the city that is abandoned. And this sets up the framework for the city to be able to maintain that abandoned property and to require that people who have a financial interest in the property, such as lenders, participate in maintaining that property. So I've asked that you consider it and pass the ordinance. Is there any questions?
Let's go to council members for any questions. Councilmember Jessup?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cleveland?
Are there any properties that were expecting to immediately start applying this to?
I don't believe so. The mayor or Mike might have more information on that.
As of right now, no, but it's a good preventative measure to have this in place.
I believe there's a property just off of Evans on that little stub of 7th Street that had some construction done on it years ago. I see it whenever I go over to my in-laws. And it doesn't look like there's been much happening there in quite some time. So it might be worth just taking a quick gander at.
Yeah, we can talk to.
I haven't looked particularly closely at it, so I could be misinformed, but as far as I know, it's still like kind of halfway into construction and abandoned. So.
We can have code enforcement take a gander.
Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Espinosa? Questions or comments? I'm gonna take that as a no.
I'm sorry, were you talking to me, Mayor?
Yes, any questions or comments?
Yeah, what would the cost be to implement a program such as this?
Well, we've worked in a provision that city council can establish a fee or fees associated with enforcement, and that is to recoup some of the cost of our code enforcement officer enforcing this. So at this time, we don't have any additional costs above and beyond employing our code enforcement officer. And then
Okay.
I should add also that if we do any maintenance, abatement of any nuisance or do any maintenance on any of the property, that cost to the city can be recouped from the value of the property if the city wishes.
Okay, a quick follow-up question. Is this a common practice that we see across other municipalities? Or where are we getting these sort of, new initiatives for
Sure,
these preventative
sure.
measures?
These really came about after the housing crisis in 2008, where communities saw a lot of people just walking away from property that didn't have sufficient value for them to continue to either work construction on it or to pay their mortgage. And what cities were finding out was that these homes would have squatters in them, there'd be criminal activity. And the way our law works in Washington State is we have to have the owner come forward and say, these are trespassers, we don't want them here. Well, the owner might be in the wind and they attempt to try to have the lender or someone with a security interest in it trespass these people and take some interest in this abandoned property. And often communities would see, this lender might be someplace on the East Coast that just didn't care about the property. And so this allows the city to act on behalf of the owner and the lender to keep trespassers out, to preserve the property and to maintain the property. And like I said, I hope, with our housing market the way it is, and the need for houses, that we won't see this in the future, but it just lays the groundwork.
Thank you. My only concern is I would not like to see the city put a lien on properties that are being neglected, because then, those, we don't know if the owners are going through undue hardships due to economic downturns or something. And so to put another economic hardship, such as a lien that could put losing their property because they're unable to upkeep, I just think that would be very, very difficult for a lot of people to swallow. So I would just caution against that.
Absolutely. And that's a policy decision on behalf of the city. It's not mandatory that there's a lien. And my understanding is that the liens that we do have on property in College Place, that we don't take any action to collect on that. It's only if there's a transfer of ownership. So I think, my pulse on the city is that we definitely don't want to financially burden anyone. We want home ownership to be supported.
Excellent. Thank you.
And this ordinance is regulating abandoned properties, so they literally would have to have nobody living or caring for it at all. Mr. Isabella?
Yeah, and I would just say a litany of communities in the state have a lot of smaller ones between the Tri-Cities and Yakima, as well as the Tri-Cities and where I came from in Colfax did. A primary example of why we created in Colfax is because there was an incident where a previous owner essentially couldn't pay the mortgage. It went to a bank, the bank sold it to basically a shadow bank that just was acting as a holding for all these foreclosed on homes. And the house had about 100-foot tree where wind was gonna make it fall. He had no ability to go in there and like deal with the tree. So luckily the power utility up there did a solid for us and went in there and removed it, and we signed that we would try to hold them harmless. But if it wasn't for Avista, that tree probably would have took out about 4 homes of people who actually were living there. So that's a prime case in point of why cities need something like this.
Well, you know, there's also, in Walla Walla, they have at least one property where there was a house fire and the house was no longer livable and they didn't have insurance on the home because they didn't have a mortgage on the home. So it's not livable, they don't have insurance, and it's just sitting there boarded up. So, you know, it's those kind of issues that we want to avoid, seeing it in the blight, you know, that the owner has no intentions of doing anything with it at all. So, okay, Councilmember Boyle, any questions or comments?
No, I don't have any questions, but I think it's good to, you know, as much as you don't want to ever have to enforce something like this, I think it's important to have provisions in place should the situation come up, so.
Right. All right, any other questions or comments? All right. Is there a motion?
Councilmember Jessup, I'll motion to approve ordinance 22-015, enacting abandoned property, abandoned construction sites, maintenance and lender responsibility code chapter and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Is there no one else? So the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you. The next action item is an ordinance regarding the general regulatory of advisory boards and commissions, and Ms. Colwell will continue to present on that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is also a third pass for this code. We're asking you to consider and pass. This is a template really for any discretionary advisory groups for the city. For example, I think we did just pass the appointment for the Youth Commission Council, Advisory Council. And what this does is it streamlines the administration of those discretionary boards to make it a little bit more user-friendly for city employees and board members, and hopefully encourage participation and make it easier on city staff. Some boards are required for grants and initiatives and things like that. Those will be in their own separate ordinance, such as the Planning Commission. So this just repeals the discretionary ones and then kind of sets a framework for all boards to follow.
Okay.
Any
you.
questions?
Councilmember Jessup,
At the moment, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions?
Mr. Espinosa,
No questions.
Boyle?
No questions?
All right, if there's no additional discussion, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 22-016, enacting advisory groups code, establishing an effective date and repealing chapters 2.26 and 2.60.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
I second.
Thank you. If there's no additional discussion, all in favor say aye.
Right?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is passed. Feels silly to ask. All right, Ms. Colwell, you're still continuing. You'll be presenting on an ordinance regarding the regulation of vacant property registration and maintenance.
Sorry, my dog is barking, so you might hear. Okay, quickly, this again is a third pass on this one. How this is different than the abandoned property is, it's what we had prior to revising the nuisance code is we had a provision for vacant property registration. And this is where the owner or interested parties want to maintain the property and want some sort of monitoring of the property, but they know it's going to be vacant. And so this reestablishes that code for people that do have vacant property. If they want, the city can do kind of the drive-by to make sure everything is as it should be, and allows the city to notify the owner quickly if there's any problems like trespassers or crimes or nuisance. So that is sorry, my dog is driving me crazy. Sorry. That is the gist of this code. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. I will say that there is a fee schedule in the ordinance as well.
Yes. Great. Mr. Jessup.
I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but just to make sure that I'm clarifying, it's only giving a provision for not neighbors who are so and so forth, but just police officers, and their responsibility would be like, hey, there's something up, and they are responsible for getting a hold of the property owner. So it's really kind of beneficial for the property owner if they happen to be away or something of that nature. It's kind of the idea or the heart behind this provision.
That is correct. And when we removed the code, we did get realtors and management companies calling in and saying, hey, we want to register this. We want this on your radar. And so part of it is demand from the community as well.
Right, and doesn't seem like it's, because our police officers kind of taxed as is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it just kind of within their privy anyway? It's not gonna add any extra, or I guess I'm just kind of asking, like, it's not significantly different than what they're doing already?
That is correct. And my understanding is, talking with the chief and code enforcement officer, is this something that they want to support for the city? And we do have a form that they fill out that releases the city from any liability. And there's a understanding that it isn't going to be, 24/7 monitoring, just as they can do it.
Great, thanks for clarifying.
Councilmember Cleveland.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Yeah, again, so I think this is a great measure to stave away crime and, property from being used for other criminal activity, or just, abandoned property seems to attract a bad company sometimes. So I think from a community safety perspective is a good move. Again, I would caution against putting liens against owners that do not follow the rules and regulations of this proposal. And Ria, I just want to ask you, what are the penalties for those that are not able to keep their property to standards for the city?
Sure. So we have a fee schedule that addresses all sorts of different types of nuisances. If the fire department needs to go out and remedy something that is a fire hazard, there's a fee for that. It's all discretionary. It's not mandatory. So if there is hardship, that I believe, and Mike and the mayor can speak to that, that's something that's taken into consideration. It really has to be an extreme case of willful, someone who could fix it, but chooses not to for whatever reason, or takes advantage of the city and the city fixing it. I think I've been with the city for 5 years now, and we've assessed one lien. And it was because it was a pretty significant amount of work done by the city. And that will just sit there until there's a transfer of ownership.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Boyle, Councilmember Boyle?
No question, thanks.
All right, any additional discussion? Councilmember Jessup?
Sorry, again, just a clarification, just to put it right in my own mind. So essentially, any of the property owners, but on the last one and this one, like they're given a due chance, like the property owners and so on and so forth are giving notification, they're giving a timeline, they're given communication in a sense before the city just says, hey, you're not following it, fire department's coming, they're getting charged. So there's provision in the sense that they're giving
They're given a lot of chances.
So-
I have no doubt, but
Right,
Yeah.
we have a code enforcement chapter in our code that applies to all of the code enforcement, and it lays out the steps that can be followed by code enforcement. So it starts with a verbal notification, a request to fix, then a written notification and request to fix. And then it would be, if I remember correctly, then we assess them with an actual like civil citation, and there's a fine assessed. And then the fourth is we go into district court and we have the discussion there with the judge. And then finally criminal, and then an alternative one would be a civil action to go in and take it. So there's a lot of room for people. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Mhm.
Any additional discussion? Okay, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion?
A motion to approve ordinance number 22-017, vacant property registration and maintenance code chapter and establishing effective date.
I'll second, Councilmember Jessica.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Did you say aye, Councilmember Jessup?
Yes, I
Okay.
am, excuse me.
I'm sorry. I mean, I know you made the motion, but just in case.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
All right, so the motion is passed. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance regarding the creation of the 3.541% for the arts program. And it's not Ms. Colwell. Mr. Rizzatello is going to present
Yep.
this time.
So this was introduced at a previous workshop, and what this allows for essentially is that 1% of like capital projects over like 2 million to allocate that toward like public art projects. Main purpose of this is for a number of state and federal grants. There are allowances where if you have such a code, you're actually able to earmark grant money for public art. And right now, that I would say that's the thing the city lacks. Any of the, like for instance, the traffic boxes. Frankly, we went to P1FCU, asked them to please pay for it. So we don't really have like a set aside bucket of money for that. So that helps in that endeavor. That code is borrowed heavily from city of Moscow, Idaho, which has had that for a number of years. And there's several all around the country and in the state, Olympia, Bellingham. I know Pullman's in the midst of, they're basically at the same stage we are at this point to match their twin city of Moscow. So a lot of people do this.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Jessup, any questions or comments?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland?
Yeah, maybe I'm just not understanding it. So if there's a project over $2 million,
Yeah.
20,000 of that will be dedicated to art or somewhere. Does that go to us into a budget, or is this something that the constructors are needing to contribute as part of the,
So it would essentially go to us in the budget, and then we can like direct or do like a RSQ for public art. And then the Park Arbor and Recreation Advisory Board here at the city, and the code behind that body, they are actually tasked with public art jurying and such. So
okay.
there is a process, actually, there's an entire public art code that deals with that was adopted about like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Just a comment, I think this is wonderful. I think we need to continue incentivizing the arts and our young people to get involved. So I think this is great.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyle?
No questions. I love it.
Wonderful. All right, if there's no additional discussion, is there a motion?
I
And
guess
move-
if I'll-
Go ahead.
I'll motion to chapter ordinance 22-018, which adds chapters 3.54, quote, a 1% for the arts program, and quote, to the College Place Municipal Code.
Councilmember Espinosa, would you like to second?
I will second.
All right.
Sorry.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion is passed. Thank you. The next item is a resolution in support of contracting with, is it Pisces?
Pisces.
Okay, and Mr. Rizzatello will present on that.
This was introduced at a previous council meeting. Again, several cities contract with this interlocal group. And essentially it deals with higher education, professors working with students to help police local government networks and try to ensure that cyber attacks and phishing and so forth does not occur. Several nearby agencies already contract with this group. Othello, city of Othello is definitely very big within this group. There is no charge with this, so it's free to be a member of this.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Council members, Mr. Jessup, any questions or comments?
No questions, but I will comment. I appreciate this very much. Getting the students involved with real experience, but also I know this is a growing trend, especially lately, and trying to do a lot of cyber checks. And so I appreciate this. This is also gratuitous timing as well. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Espinosa,
No questions.
Ms. Boyle.
No questions. I think this is a great opportunity.
Okay, if there's no additional discussion, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution number 22-065, which authorizes the city administrator to sign membership forms for the city to join Pisces.
Is there a second? Anybody want a second, please?
I will second. Councilmember
Thank you.
Espinosa.
Thank you so much. If there's no additional discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it and the motion is passed. Next item is resolution of support for the Port of Walla Walla and Walla Walla County grant for Lions Park. Mr. Rizzatello.
Yes. So the 0.09 fund has two purposes through the port. With the 0.09, there's essentially 0.9 cent sales tax that the port collects, and it can be used for economic development purposes or properties that indirectly support said economic development purposes. A couple of years ago, we got one of these grants for Southwest Sewer Project. The proposal here is to go after another 200,000 in funds for Lions Park. And as I've made several references to over several council meetings, due to inflation and just the general cost of everything going up, we're constantly chasing ourselves, making sure that the grants and other monies keep up with where this thing is going, because several of the grants essentially, it needs to be like done by like spring 2024 at the latest, because our CO grants, a lot of them have a drop dead deadline, which for all intents and purposes means the construction period needs to be happening next year. So this is our attempt at continuing to backfill that so it happens and we get a good park out of it. So that's what's before you. Soon as y'all approve this, I'll file this with the port, and then it'll go through their process and we'll move on.
Okay. Mr. Jessup, questions or comments on this?
I'm just like to be the first to say again, thanks for the grants and the work and that kind of stuff, and can't be more excited with the growing demographic of a bunch of families and kids and how important and well, rather fun this is as well. So,
It's a pretty big community thing.
yeah.
Mr. Cleveland?
Does this bring us to a point where we have all the funds we need, or are we still seeking?
We're still seeking more, because latest inflationary numbers, if we were to do everything, keep in mind, I would say over time, there's been scope creep because with a project like this, Park Board even, as we've had council meetings, it's like, hey, why don't you add this or that? So we've been trying to cost out the laundry list of everything, at least as it stands, like right now with inflation would be like north of 5 million on that. So we continue to backfill on that, and a goal is to have a true delta of this thing, and we continue to put in for grants, but again, the key thing is an estimate. We really aren't gonna know until we have this thing out to bid, and what I think the general plan is gonna be is the items that were listed in the state RCO grants, so splash pad for the ecology grant, naturally it's fixing the pond, for instance, multi-use field and restrooms, picnic shelter. Those are explicit items and those are the priorities. Other tangential things like over time, we've talked about, hey, gazebo for entertainment, exercise equipment. As we have the fund it, naturally, if we can afford it, we should do that. But if we get in a pickle, some of those, I believe, on that contractor bid shield need to be listed as alternates. So that way we have costs of what the core stuff is and then what the anecdotal things are. So that way we can move forward and get this thing done.
It feels a little bit like, we have a bucket with a hole in it, we keep.
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Yeah.
No further questions.
Councilmember Espinosa,
No questions.
Councilmember Boyle.
No question, thanks.
All right, if there's no additional discussion, is there a motion on this?
I will motion to approve resolution number 22-066, supporting the city's grant application into the 4.09 grant program, Alliance Park for $200,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Jessica, I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. The next item is a resolution in support of applying for the Federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant to support the College Place Safe Streets project.
Yep.
That was a tongue twister for me. Mr. Rizzatello.
Thank you. So this item is really important, actually next to which is why I'm glad we were able to get this meeting today because it's due this week. So this federal S4 grant is a new grant opportunity from the federal DOT, Department of Transportation. The quirky thing about this grant opportunity is that randomly, for those that end up being funded, they're going to be randomly releasing funds over the next 4 years. So if you miss this, you're essentially toast for getting this bucket of money for the next 4 years. And what it is it's to fund implementation of projects that further transportation safety or complete streets. And in order to do it, you need to have essentially a prioritized action plan or complete streets. Luckily, not knowing that this was coming down the pike, a couple of years ago, we passed the complete streets ordinance, so we have that. And then for the action plan, the local road safety plan you all adopted last year actually counts. So we did a checklist and it actually covered everything. So when you look through the local road safety plan, it has to do with aggregations of crashes or incidents or things of that sort to further safety. So there's a laundry list of projects in here. Some of them is putting in the street lighting, continuing around like the university campus. And luckily, right away donations can count as a match because this grant is 80-20. So 80% grant, 20% match, including in kind. Have started the dialogue with the university about donations there. And then other things are included as well. One of them we continue to get a lot of emails about, which is the post office crosswalk.
All those emails are from me.
Well, and a lot of people. So, so that project is included in this. Another one that's included is the project about the Garrison Village Way and Myra Road. That is always a hot topic. In City of Walla Walla, they've had their percentage like earmarked toward this, and their CFP, again, that counts as a match. Now, they're doing a safe routes grant for other corridors. That's why we put this in our request. But they're supportive of it. And then the other thing we put in here too is backfilling the John Muir Road. Because as I mentioned before, we have the federal MPO grant for the engineering, but construction wise, again, because of inflation, that has continued to wreak havoc on that element, the construction element. So a lot of projects in this, and it's mainly because you have one chance to turn this in for the next 4 years, and then that's it. So it's due this week, so that's what's before you all.
Well, you're kind of close. aren't
Yeah, I
you?
know.
Yeah, next week, or next year, or next 4 years, let's do it 2 weeks. ahead.
Yeah.
Instead.
Yeah.
Councilmember Jessup.
So if I understand correctly, as most grants go, you're putting in the 80-20 match grant, right?
Yeah.
So in the grant, you specify the projects that in which we would be applying for money.
Yeah.
So forth. There's already things we've been budgeting or budgeting. Essentially, what I'm asking is this isn't just trying to get the money.
Yeah.
It's not gonna necessarily paint us in a corner in projects that are on a wish list versus
Yeah.
necessary.
So all of them have been listed in the 6-year CFP. As far, we've made estimates as far as funding. I mean, do we have all funding solidified? No, because it goes all the way out for 6 years.
Right.
You have your wild guesses for sure. But that Myra Garrison thing, the post office, Majanier, that's all stuff over years that have been listed. So this is our attempt at trying to get funds for that. And then naturally, there's priority. You can give them prioritization as well. So in the prioritization is the more hot topic projects such as the post office crosswalk, the Garrison, Myra, and the Majanier, and then the lighting stuff that's like down at the bottom.
So in the grant application, you're allowed that flexibility.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland.
No question?
Councilmember Espinosa.
No questions.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions.
All right, there's no further discussion. Is there a motion?
A motion to adopt resolution number 22-067, which is a resolution of support for federal Department of Transportation Safe Streets and Roads for all grant application for University District Lead Streets project.
Councilmember Boyle, I'll second.
Great, thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Lastly, Mr. Rizzatello will present a resolution in support to adopt a Vision Zero goal.
So this is aspirational and is a requirement for the grant resolution. You all just passed, and essentially it has to do with crashes and injuries and so forth, saying aspirationally in the future. The aspiration is they have like none of that. So the Walla Valley Blue Zones, they wrote this resolution, for the city of Walla Walla initially. City of Walla Walla passed theirs and essentially sub out the language of Walla Walla and put in College Place. It's a fairly, identical, resolution, and that allows us to then file this then.
Okay. Mr. Jessup, questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
No question.
Mr. Espinosa?
No questions.
Ms. Boyle?
No questions.
All right, there's no additional discussion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 22-068 adoption vision zero goal.
We have a second?
I'll second, Councilman Jessup.
All right, any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you, Mr. Vitello. We're coming towards the end. There's no administrative reports tonight. There is one information report in your packet for you to review. We do not have an executive session tonight. So we're at the end of our agenda. Is there any other business for good of the order? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to conclude?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
If there's no objection, the meeting is concluded at 7:52 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Councilmember Espinosa, Councilmember Espinosa, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Especially if they're.
Yeah.
Yeah,